reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to them no want you reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no want to see you rich. Them will love to see you in a ditch. Them no want to see you pan tour. Them no want you get more, so get more. Show them you not afraid them. One load them. Every human have a something that them destined. That is your destiny. So be what you ought to be. Even if no want you reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no want you reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no want to see you fly. Them no want to see you touch sky. Them no want to see you fly. Hey. Bling bling, now me call it King Kong. Every song I write, it's song. Every song I write, it's song. Tell me something, am I wrong? To believe in myself, put nobody above myself. Energy, energy, build your energy. Love, charity, what a sight to see, what a sight to see. What a colossal, working and working and working to prosper. What you gonna stop for? Keep on and keep on, it's right on the corner. Hey, make way when I'm weird there. Hey, tell the ears that them stay there. Hey, that is your destiny. To be what you ought to be. Even if no one you reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no one you reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no want to see you fly. Them no want to see you touch sky. Them no want to see you fly. Hey. Them no want to see you fly. Them no want to see you touch sky. Them no want to see you fly. Hey. Never wanna see you fly. Never want you touch the sky. Never, never, never. Reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no want you reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no want to see you rich. Them will love to see you in a ditch. Them no want to see you pan tour. Them no want you get more, so get more. Show them you not afraid them. One load them. Every human have a something that them destined. That is your destiny. So be what you ought to be. Even if no one you reach nowhere, reach nowhere.
Hey, good night, everybody. 2nd of February, first Monday in February. Each day in February are 4 days, they say, this year. Once in every 800 and something year. Phenomenon. We're all here to live it. Sorry for the technical difficulties from last week. Don't know what happened this week. At least we got some kind of backup system in place. That can't be how much time. That can't be how much time. But anyway, I'm gonna check over that. this can't be how much time not from what I can. Yeah, just feel closer to where again. But anyway, good evening. Tonight the agenda is to finish off the SSD and to give you all some perspective on what I think is taking place. But the regard I'm gonna start off and say I was incorrect. I told y'all I feel like he closer to dead than living, but I'm wrong. Get stuff wrong sometimes. So I laid out why I thought that there was nothing taking place, and all of that turned out to be incorrect. So um, that at least that prognostication was incorrect. I want to give some thoughts on, well, later after, I guess, maybe through the rest of the interview. But we're going to finish up that. And then after that, now, I listen to a little bit of Pat. I think this is Pat from last week, Monday. And then I also want to listen to some of the Premier. The Premier had a recent interview with a man, I think, Jermaine Clark, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. And so I'm gonna be speaking about those, reacting to those, and a couple more things. I also want to apologize. We were supposed to do the press conference last week, and I had a miscommunication with Ira on it. Something that I would like to say. All of the questions that I thought were of significance were asked from Van Radio from the start. It was noted by persons who were watching it live that these were not addressed in the main speech. These were questions that had to be asked for answers to be provided. And I think that is interesting. It is something that I have pointed out as well. I don't think that we should be waiting for some of these major projects for answers. They should be really follow-up questions. There should be more information put out so that the appropriate follow-ups can be asked so that we're not wasting time with certain things. I find it interesting that we don't have concrete plans in certain circumstances. When you're gonna endeavor to build some of the things that we're gonna do, the airport, geothermal, certainly, you need plans in place, and then based off of the plans, you will determine how the funding is gonna go. So one of the things that I'm trying to pay attention to is the costs as they come in, as we are told them to make sure that they are matching up. Because what we are seeing now is that they are moving forward with certain plans, and I'm still hearing that they are in the process of getting plans done, or in certain circumstances, they're still in the process of acquiring the land that is necessary to move forward with the project. So, in order to really see how these things are gonna go, we're gonna need that information. Having said all of that, let's finish off this interview with Mr. Yes.
It's like some desperation idea. It's of course it's a tool for governments to improve.
No, let me pause it, Mr. Jansen. Let me pause. No, I'm not there, but
the lives of people and the GDP, and special economics is bring a lot of value to countries, right? So I would assume and I would hope that the government does this because it's a healthy decision for a country to make, not because they're strapped for cash, if that makes any sense.
Yes, and let me get in some of the question them, please. Well, we're at it, and hold the calls. There's some of the questions.
Yes, I'm
You
on.
mute your son.
My
You
bad. In
mute.
terms of, yes, I have gotten that. In terms of the question, okay, here's where the question.
Just check the when chat, your son, for the pre-post
Yeah,
questions.
that's what I'm speaking to open up.
Yes. So, Mr. Jensen, while we're at it, tuning in, just one, they're listening to the developer for the SSZ over on the south side. Great appreciate him coming on Real Entertainment Network. Always, folks, remember to subscribe and like so that this Wednesday cover and listen for you with Charles McWilliam, and then Friday with Professor Knife out of will speak economics and how we can diversify agriculture, and when it comes to tourism, compare to diversify our economy. Yes, and you ready?
Okay, yes. So we have some questions. Okay, well, one, why Nevis? I think you would have answered that already. Who approached you about the South Coast? That's one of the questions. What
No,
other projects has you been a part of? Well, and somebody asked this already. Why not in your own country? What would it take for you to abandon this project?
Listen, I hope that wasn't me. I don't think it was me. But that was kind of weird just now how that is uploaded because I don't recall that happening. So hopefully that issue is rectified and it was weird which what happened during the recording. I don't know what just happened.
Another have you ever been in Nevis on Nevis? Why have you never contributed to Nevis before? Who crafted the SSC legislation? So those are some of the questions. What other Caribbean countries have you approached or has approached you? Who are the other
Okay,
major
yes, and
investors?
okay,
yeah.
that's enough. Let get a chance to answer some of those, and then you can continue
These are some
if you
of the
choose to.
questions.
Yeah, I know. I wrote a couple of them down, right? And so, can you ask the first one again because it's
Okay, so
why the
why
South
Nevis?
Coast? No one
Yes,
approached
where? Who
about the
approached
South
you?
Coast. I mean, there was no one that said like go to the South Coast. No, I just looked at Nevis and was like the South Coast is not really developed right now. I think it's a good opportunity, right? And also it turned out that like a lot of land was owned by a handful of owners. So not all of it, obviously. There's definitely a lot of smaller parcels, but like more towards the east, it's very large parcels that are owned by a handful of owners. So yeah, next one.
What would it take for you to abandon this project?
Yeah. I think if you really and I know it's sort of emotional too, right? People like I mentioned before, and I can keep repeating it. I'm very worried right now. People have heard a lot of rumors that are not really true. Again, like the 10,000 libertarians coming is completely false. We're going to be a family-based project. We're not here to start a new country. We're not a state within a state. There's so many things I can keep debunking, but I don't think it's useful. So you also don't have to believe me. I think some people at the point where they probably don't trust what I say because they think I have some bad agenda, right? So it's like, okay, don't trust me, but at least look at the documents and the agreements that will become public. And before they're passed in Parliament, you can look at them all. You can look at the actual facts, and then you can see what's true. And I just want.
No, I don't know if that's like a slip of the tongue You know, I don't know if that's like a loss in translation kind of circumstance. But he said that before they go to Parliament, we supposed to see what's going on with the documents. Before. Now, I have just been holding out hope and wanting us to get the documents in accordance with the law. But it would be wonderful if we could get them before too. And especially since they have been agreed to essentially since December the 23rd. I think that the general public would like to get their hands on the document. And he just said before, as I said, I don't know if that was a slip of the tongue, but that's what I heard.
To be people be aware of that, right? I just ask you, okay, if I said it earlier, if I would have heard what I've heard in terms of rumors, I would also be very concerned and upset, right? The good news is that it's not true, and the good news is that you don't have to trust me what I say because you can look at it all yourself very.
I would like to say the fact that he's saying that if he had heard them rumors, he would have been concerned. Mean at least that the rumors are valid. Because you wouldn't be concerned with rumors that don't have any type of validity, you know. But he himself, he's like, man, if I was hearing this about the country I live in, well, about Belgium, I wouldn't want to live here. I would be concerned at least.
Soon, and then you can judge it, and if you like it, and then you like it. If you don't, you don't. What would it take? If the government says no and everyone else says no, and I would be surprised, then why would we do it? Then we do it somewhere else. But I would love for Nevis to be the place. And again, it's like if someone comes with a special economic zone, like there are so many. Let's say the Four Seasons come with.
He's saying that if they say no, he would be surprised. If the people say no, he would be surprised. Okay. And I'm just repeating the fact that he's saying that he would be surprised if he hear no. And that kind of feeds into the fact that people have been saying that this thing is already signed. Once again, this is me saying I was wrong about that. So him saying that he would be surprised at this point to hear no, yeah, pretty him.
With something similar, right? Like a special economic zone for the Four Seasons. Would it then be like, what would it take the Four Seasons to abandon the project? I think we are the first development company in Nevis and St. Kitts ever to be fully transparent about everything, having discussions up front. There's limitations put in place for the SSZ Act, right? Again, the SSZ Act is a way to limit things. It's not a way to enable things, because they could have passed the Destiny Act without the SSZ Act and put everything from the SSZ Act in a Destiny-specific Act. And, it could have been passed maybe in August. And there wouldn't even have been an SSZ Act. So the SSZ Act, what it did instead, it was look at everything and put limitations in place. So it says like, okay, you have to have 70% from renewables. You have to abide by this. Everything has to appear in front of Parliament, which is great. I love it. All transparency. And maybe I should wrap up with this because I'm getting pretty tired. But in the end, I really want everyone to. I want to have full transparency, to have everyone look at the agreement, they make an informed decision, and nothing has been signed yet, so you don't have to worry. You can look at everything yourself. You can.
Once again, at least what we're hearing from Mr. Jansen is he would like the agreement to be in the people's hand. He would like us to see what's going on, to give our opinions. And I would also like to say, I think that Mr. Jansen should appear on some local radio stations. They really get a flavor for support people who oppose. I feel like that would be important.
Look at all our reports, data, EIAs, how we're going to get our energy, the rain, the water, everything, and also the agreement itself. You can look at the Code of Destiny, how the internal rules work, how we're.
Let me just say something to it. You see all of the information the way he say available, should be available. How are they gonna get the energy? How are they gonna support themselves with water? The EIA, all kind of different reports. I would want to believe there is some kind of feasibility study as well, something with some economics to justify the expenditure that is being proposed. Because at the end of the day, you better believe this is some good old Western capitalism. So there is no denying that there has to be some sound financial reason for what is being proposed at the end of the day. God have it.
Still bound by the Constitution of St. Kitts and Nevis, how the courts of St. Kitts and Nevis have the ultimate authority, how the Department of Public Prosecutions can take over any case, that's full authority. So in terms of risk, I don't think it's a big risk, right? But again, it's up to you to judge. You can look at everything and then
That aspect of the DPP still being able to take over all the cases suggests to me that the legislation is more like Dubai. Because it's just that Dubai specifically said you're exempt from the civil laws. And then in certain exception, with certain exception, like maybe money laundering, that type of thing. But outside of that, you're not bound by the civil laws, but the criminal laws, oh, you better believe regular police.
you can give feedback to
one of the thing that I want to mention is that this development have caused a lot of controversy where you end up into name calling, Columbus, Barabbas. Yeah. So nowadays, two different teams is split within the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. You have Team Jesus and you have Team Barabbas. So this is where I'm trying to. So this is where you see the legal fraternity have come in, the Angelical Association, the Chambers of Commerce. These are not just blue or yellow or red or green or anything like that. These are genuine natives, people who have genuine concern. So I understand you're investing in development. So how does something like this, when it's the legal fraternity, the Attorney General, the one the way the bill was crafted in his office, his own father, which is a KC, a King's Counsel, is against and have issues with this thing. So how do you look at this when you have a wide spectrum of the society against something like this and wanting to slow down and bring more questions and answers to the people?
Yeah, it's the same. It's even with those bodies, so to speak, or those very prominent people, they still don't have all the information. They are basing, like I said, valid concerns. We'll appreciate them, but they're basing those concerns on many rumors that are not really true. I think once they see all the agreements, once everything is public, then they can look at it and voice concerns. I think all those concerns are made very preliminary. I would love to talk to all of them. I invite them, come over. We're very open, transparent. Please contact us by email. Some already did.
Once again, and I would just feel like it's important to say this. He is saying that the people have valid concerns. He is saying that he would like the documents, the agreements. He is saying basically this deal is so good, I don't care if the general public says this deal. At this moment in time, the exclusion that we're getting from seeing this deal is coming from the politicians themselves. Especially bearing in mind that this deal has been on their desk for more than a month now. We're actually getting into 2 months now. This is going to be on their desk. And all of these things are important. And this is setting the precedent. People looking at how long it's taking to process this other people who want to apply and get into the sector. So all of this is being looked at. This is the example that we're gonna be moving off of, basically going forward.
Some of the people you mentioned already contacted us. We will talk to them. We will explain everything. we're very happy. I welcome transparency, right? I would love to
You
have
see, what is happening here is that we're working backwards. The project should have come to the people where discuss, have town hall, but instead an act was passed, and then now we're going out to the people to have discussion. So you can understand the confusion. So why didn't that happen first? Why they had to force the act?
Oh no, I would have loved to give a town hall already months ago. I proposed it, right, with the government. I said, like, can we do a town hall? And they said, well, we're not, the government has to be ready too. I would have done a town hall.
So the issue is the government then. So the issue was the government. The issue was not you.
I'm not blaming anyone.
So the issue was the government.
We have no.
So the government is the problem. So you just admit the government is the problem then.
Okay, question, Mr. Johnson, right? As we get into that, here's the question. I think there is that lingering thing that needs to be sorted out, in the sense that, on one side we're hearing, well, it's only a minority that is saying that they don't want the project, and then on another side you're hearing, well, you're getting opposition from all walks of life. As a matter of fact, generally, when you have issues on St. Kitts and Nevis, you might hear people make noise for 9-10 days and so on, and then the issue has died down. But this issue has not died. This issue has seemingly caught even more momentum. Now, we on the platform, because of having we have had an interview with the Premier himself, and we are now having an interview with you. Then
I wanna know right now if this thing still got momentum. And I wanna know if this thing ever had the momentum that some people thought they had. We're gonna see. But I won't get to that, Charlie.
When we spoke to the Premier would have, been on the side that is only a minority that is doing it. Now we're doing a poll here on this network, Real Entertainment Network, to find out if the people wants the SSZ and the Destiny don't want it. So we are actually doing our poll here on Real Entertainment Network. We spoke about the referendum. You said, well, you don't know, but a poll can work as well. Now, if we
did a poll too.
Okay, so we're going to do a poll. And if you get the feedback that majority of the people is not for this project, what do you say? What would you do?
It's very interesting because I saw the poll in your Facebook, right? And it was, I don't know, it was something crazy. Like 80% was against. We did our poll with the people directly, and I would say it's much different for our internal polling, which is also pretty objective. The majority was for. There's definitely a percentage against. I would say 30% is against, maybe 40% is for, and then you have a little bit undecided, right? But I would say it's 40 for this 30, and this is also with the data that's out there. Like it's with all the concerns and rumors that are there. I think once people really know the facts, because I don't think also online, if I would look online, I would think if I'm in the diaspora, right, looking outside of Nevis, looking in, and I'm looking at Facebook, I would think it's a complete disaster what's happening. They're like, everyone is against this. But if you go talk to the people, so many people are for this project. We already have like more than 1,000 job applications from Kittitians and Nevisians. People are so eager for this to come.
Once again, I'm very confused by all of this. We got job applications coming in for projects where we do not know the full extent of. But we got 1,000 job applications. Carry on.
So happy, right? But you only hear the people that are against it, like speaking very loudly. It's such a joy for me to talk to people who want this to come with the jobs and everyone. The people that have businesses in St. Kitts and Nevis, they love it. It's for me. I hear both sides. I know the other side. You don't probably see that online because most of the complainers are online. I don't see many people saying online, "Oh yeah, we want this." No, it's most people, the most vocal people, and you see this everywhere, or those that are against something. So I think the reality is very different from what you see online. I really hope the diaspora and everyone outside of Nevis will really understand at one point it's not the real picture of what's happening in the island, right? It's absolutely different.
With that said, I know you said a bit earlier that you're getting a bit tired, so we would
Yes.
want to know if you're going to give us the guarantee that when we call on you again, because you see that there's a need for you to do this, and there's a lot of questions
Oh, yeah.
that we would have had on the line that we really didn't get answered and so on. I'm sure there's a lot more people who would like to call in and so on. Are you going to give us that guarantee that you'll be able to come back on this platform in the not too distant
Absolutely.
future?
Okay, we done with that then. We don't get to the meat of the matter. So really, don't concern myself with the part this or so. The rest of that. Uh, with regards to the SSZ, these are my final observations. As we move, well, my final observations on this first phase. This first phase was like the first media phase of the SSC. Now, we heard last week, basically, Premier said that the proposal is agreed to, essentially, and it is on the desk of the Prime Minister. I I feel like it's important to hear what people who individuals who are not pleased with that and feel like we should have enough us. But I could also understand the premier. This is good politics because ultimately, if you need a project to be signed off in the parliament in St. Kitts, it is good politics to be on the right side of those politicians ultimately. Because one of the things that has not been said enough is that by by having that particular provision, it basically gives St. Kitts a veto power on any development under the SSD regulation that navies might want to move forward with. So, from a purely political perspective, I would understand the Premier getting this in front of the Prime Minister as early as possible. When the Prime Minister is asked if he see the document and he said he didn't see it, that's something ultimately that for the Premier again, how he got to read that in a number of ways. If Dr. Joe was on a radio program saying that he hasn't seen the document in January and he has had the document since December, then you understand that he is not prioritizing this issue. So that is a correct reading. Now, if you follow Alvan will tell you, and there was a post from the premier that we didn't realize maybe what it meant, but he thanked Prime Minister Joe for continued support. We don't know if that was him getting the high sign to say, well, this thing is moving forward. No, ultimately, destiny, just like Mr. Jansen said, it is very unlikely at this point. From what I have seen, from what I have seen from those in power, that there will be any stopping this. I wonder about the opposition. I think that the premier is once again good at politics. And I do not think that the premier would make this decision unless he carried out some kind of political polling, whether official or unofficial, to determine whether or not this would be something that hurts him at the polls in the next election, which is just under 2 years now. Just over 2 years now, we will be having, just certainly, an election around about that time, speaking from a local perspective. Now, if he has made the calculation that this is not going to hurt him at the polls, that means that he has seen, he has narrowed it down and said, is a few landowners. There has not been any pushback, at least not enough pushback to indicate that, people who actually going to vote against the party because of this particular thing. The thing that the thing that must be acknowledged is that there are a level of people who do want this project. And having said that, one of the critiques I would have of the NRP, and if I'm incorrect about what I'm gonna say, please, if I'm incorrect about what I'm about to say, anybody is free to correct me on the record. I do recall NRP has opposed this project, I think from the very beginning, I think strenuously. I don't recall any NRP politician, speaking specifically of the politicians, I don't recall if any of the candidates, any of the caretakers, has spoken about what their plans would be if they were in power and how they would handle any development. Because one thing that must be acknowledged also is that the people over there do want, the landowners do want the value of their land to increase. They want some activity over there. I think in general, in particular, young people would like for there to be some development over there. So I don't know if I have heard articulated by the Nevis Reformation Party in a consistent and coherent manner what their plan will be. I don't even know if anybody does have the old plans that Dr. Daly had for over there. And I think that any real opposition to this project would also have to come with an alternative for, well, you don't want the Destiny project. How would you approach it? What value do you see in the land over there? Because if it's going to be the same thing, then there are going to be valid arguments to say, well, then nothing is going to be changing. So, an alternative plan will be in place from anybody who is going to oppose the Destiny project with credibility. As I said, going forward, Destiny is going to be happening. Destiny is going to be the premier legacy right now. So, if in 25 years, Destiny really has brought 10,000 new people, Destiny has diversified at least the tourism, because I haven't heard any of the other businesses that they would actually do to diversify the economy. But if Destiny offer a diversity in terms of a different place to stay, different activities in Nevis as an alternative to Four Seasons, then it's going to be in the Premier's legacy that he brought Destiny and the level of development that he would have brought to the South Coast. So, this is the gambling right now for the Honorable Mark Bradley. Having said that, and maybe I won't get an answer to my question. We're gonna listen. I'm gonna listen a little bit of Pat now. I think she was on Your Voice a couple of Mondays ago, and I'm gonna listen to hear if she spoke about any alternatives. I want to hear what Pat plans do. So let me take a little turn and listen to your voice. Something like that. Yeah, I'm gonna have to scroll through this so I could get which part the real action is in this thing. Yes, so. Listen, I don't know. Come back to this. I'm gonna have to come back to you. Pat. I don't feel like the premiere Ghana music outlet. So I don't start out that and I don't come back to Pat. See, you can okay. No, I could see your Pat. No, I got you. Yeah. Mm-mm. You pass all of that. Okay. Yeah, I'm not wishing anybody on Janice. I think that was the thing for Janice. I'm trying to get towards the meat of the matter, you know. I come to deal with business. I want to hear about the policies and the issues what hot right now in the Navy. So I say make it scroll a little bit further forward. Yeah. You see, all of them things we're not concerned about that bro and hear about the issue. It cold right now too. Okay.
Unfortunate that we have to keep talking about these issues, and I'm not I'm not about to touch, or not likely to touch on the status of the Alexandria Hospital tonight, because as we know, I wouldn't touch it, just like how the CCM NIA is not likely to touch the hospital this year.
No, oh, you mean physically touching?
Right? They're not likely to address that this
Because
year.
the Premier has his first press conference tomorrow, and he must address that.
He might talk about it, but at the end of 2026, they still would not have done anything on it.
Same as you said last year, right?
Well, it has been like that for
3
how
years.
many years?
3
Okay.
years. Ditto.
You see?
All right.
I
So
know
go. Right ahead.
So I'm just going to pretend like, we don't have a big issue with the Alexandria Hospital, because that has been talked about so many times, and the Premier seem not to be paying any mind to the fact that that is a project that ought to come to a conclusion soon, or soonest, So like I said, I'm going to leave that alone. And the reason why I wanted to address this is because when I read the message from party leader, that she had an issue and she had to go off island. It was excruciating for me, because I'm saying in 2026, we should not still be dependent on outside sources for basic services such like healthcare. That is something that we had the wherewithal, that we could have addressed healthcare, that people should have been coming here to seek healthcare rather than for us to be going elsewhere to seek healthcare. And she spoke about being away for weeks, I mean, this is an issue that we need to address. And when NRP is in power, that ought to be one of the first things. We ought to give healthcare priority, especially for the people of Nevis. Because, after I said, no, she should not have had to do that. And so many people, and the thing is, she had, obviously, she had the means. What about those who don't have the means to move, Steve? And so these are things that I think we need to keep on the foreburner. We can't put them on the back burner at all. And so that is the reason why I included that as as a topic for us to discuss, whether it's 20 minutes or less or more. All right? So we need to ask them, and there are people out there who, when they listen to the press conferences, they get the impression that things in Nevis are okay. You keep hearing the Premier would say things like, this is the best,
Okay. Is the audio now? Yeah, me see audio now. Let me know if I could hear me now. No, cause me see sound are coming now. Anybody hear me? Do I need to go back to what Miss Bartlett was saying about healthcare? I know I have to rehash and lay in what I was saying. You still can't hear me at all? Okay, okay. Yeah, I thought I was back. So what I was saying in regard in as a reaction to Miss Bartlett, I feel like all of these are valid. I also added that healthcare is the number one growing industry sector in the world. Education is second, and leisure and tourism is the third one for the services industry. So you do have a good case by saying that we need to develop our healthcare, and that also goes on to say healthcare, by having good healthcare, it affects how much you could produce, the type of things that you could do by having a healthy population. So there is no negative to argue about when you're arguing about healthcare. I think where there is a little bit of a shortage is what are how does the NRP see it going as the alternative to what is taking place now? And in this space also, I feel like there is room to build upon some of the good things that the concerned citizen movement has done. So if we gonna be doing institutes, I think they're doing the training. I forget what the abbreviation is, but there's the technical college up in Gingerland. You could do one down in Charleston. You could do it somewhere else in Nevis. But definitely one of the things that we could do is seek to be a very good place where you could come for healthcare, and where there are a lot of persons who are trained to give very good healthcare in a sector, as I said, that is important on a number of fronts. So to be a leader, and that's also something I would also say, we I'm not saying that we shouldn't have big dreams, but I think that we need to be realistic in what we're trying to achieve. And I think that there is no shame in being a regional leader. That we always try to be the number one within the region. And if you're number one within the region, then for where you are in the world, you can't be that bad. But I think that it is time for us to be realistic about where we are from a regional perspective, and not just try to say we're gonna be the number one in the world. So it's just a small little critique on how Miss Barlett could be a little better in this space.
Keep on the burner. We can't put them on the back burner at all. And so that is the reason why I included that as as a topic for us to discuss, whether it's 20 minutes or less or more. All right. So we need to ask them, and there are people out there who, when they listen to the press conferences, they get the impression that things in Nevis are okay. You keep hearing the premier would say things like, this is the best the healthcare has ever been in Nevis. No, how healthcare could be the best when I'm asking, what are the metrics? What is it that he is looking at to arrive at that conclusion? And when you make those statements, why not supply us with the data, the evidence? Because things ought to be evidence-based. We are 98% literate. It means that we're expecting a higher level of reporting health.
I support this. I feel like we need a lot more KPIs, key performance index, in a scenario where the government fails to provide them. Once again, I would say, why not you provide them? You could type in right now to one of the AI services what are the key performance indexes in regards to healthcare, and they would give you something that you could kind of come back to. And I was doing that in relation to something that I heard a different politician say, but it's not to say that it's viable. So I don't think that we should simply wait on politicians anymore. I was doing it with regards to literacy. I was hearing that how politicians end up generalizing and saying because there's a high literacy rate, then that means you are highly educated. And then when you dig into the numbers, then you start to see that there are things like functional literacy. So it's not just that you went to high school, but how good are you at interpreting and what level of information can you interpret? And this would give you a better indication of how many persons are educated. And the education rate is going to be heavily tied into how well persons are doing at the end of the day, whether they have tertiary education or high skills training.
A higher level of accountability from our elected leaders, and so when he says things, off the cuff, like, healthcare is the best it's had been, I'm like, what are you looking at? Share the data with us. It is true, and I look at some data from the World Health Organization, WHO, and unfortunately the data that I managed to capture would have just been up to 2022. For some reason, we are slacking on data, even to feed data into the institutions that need them to advise us, to giving us, for giving us technical advice. We sometimes fall a little short, and I don't know what the issue is, but with Dr. Ju, we need to step up and we need to catch up. And so we asked, what is the actual state of affairs as it relates to healthcare in St. Kitts and Nevis? And I think while most of us would have accepted that it is a fact that non-communicable diseases are the ones that plague us most, we still not sure which direction we're going. When you say it is the best that healthcare has ever been, it would suggest to me that we have already gotten a good grip on addressing the non-communicable diseases that are plaguing us. Things like cardiovascular diseases. We're still hearing about people dying from strokes. Well, I mean, it happens, and we understand that.
Saying that healthcare is the best it has ever been is not necessarily saying that we got a grip on everything. It's just basically saying how far we come from. I think I'm gonna have to load this video at some point in time. It would help if it was on YouTube. But anyway, there's this video that's circulating after Hurricane Hugo, when we got to say late but still great DJ Marshall went around Nevis. And you could kind of see Nevis from 1989. Not really a lot changed. No, certain things change. But ain't a lot really changed. But with regards to healthcare, it's just to show you how far we coming from, how primitive we coming from, to the point where we still rough on the edges, but it is not to say we got everything handled. It's just to say how far back we coming from. And here we need to understand and we need to hear how would healthcare look alternative to what is taking place now. What are the things that would be addressed that would make NRP different from what is going on right now?
But the trend ought to be, if things are the best, the trend ought to be that things are going down as it relates to the occurrences of these diseases that are afflicting us. So when we look at cardiovascular diseases, I looked at the data that the WHO had published from 1992, and I took them in 10-year gaps. You know, from 1992, we had 162 persons dying from cardiovascular disease in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. In 2002, it went down a bit. In 2012, it went down a little bit. 2022, but it is still hovering close to where it was in 1992. So it means that we are not necessarily doing the work that is required to eliminate or we even reduce significantly the occurrences.
Listen, if in life, right, all I'm gonna say is this: if you ask for transparency, you're gonna be transparent. Just now we hear that in 1992 we had 162, and then we don't hear the actual number after that. Then. We hear that the number went down, and it went down again, and it hovering, but it down, and down is indicating that there have been improvements. Has it gone down to zero? No, but overall standards have improved such that it it has gone down. I you know what? Let me hear because there's certain information that could save this. But right now, this is for my part about that.
Of cardiovascular diseases, you still hear, you know, frequently about people ended up in the hospital with strokes or they just die suddenly and they claim that it is heart attack. You know, so we need to do better about that if we're going to boast that healthcare is the best it has ever been. It means that the comparative data should lead us to that conclusion. It means when we look at the data, years gone by compared to this year and current years, it means that these data should be better. We should be getting better figures. We should have less people dying from these diseases. Then we look at the most alarming thing for me was what they call malignant neoplasms, which is really talking about cancers. That is really a fancy name, you know, for saying that people have cancers of various, you know, origins. And so in 1992, we had 39 persons dying from cancers, or that is on the death certificate. That's what I said. You know, it was attributed to cancer.
This is something what I would like to say to all political parties: stop disputing, you know, what is on the record for things that we use for the record. If you spot something that is kind of fishy about something, you bring something to address that, or at least bring some kind of justification. But it don't make no sense to say that, well, that way be then put pan the paper. If you got something that you say is fishy, explain why you're saying that exactly. The little circumstance. Maybe I talk too fast. But I'm hoping that this wasn't just shade for shade's sake.
Or complications related to or arising from, you know, cancer. And in 2002, it rose. 2012, it rose. So it gone from 39. And so in 2022, it was up to 94. From 39 in 1992 and gradually increasing up to 94 in 2022. Now we're in 2026 now, and so we have a gap. And we know that people have been dying frequently around here, and every time you ask, most of the times you ask, you're hearing that if somebody had cancer, some young person, exited because they had cancer. The same thing could be said of diabetes. We had numbers as low as 10, and I didn't capture any data for 1992, but in 2002, we had 10 persons dying from diabetes and complications related to, and in 2022, we had 55. So you're talking about 5 times what we had in 2002 that we had in 2022, 20 years later.
Okay, listen, I can get my policy prescription. Okay? I hoping that this is not she just laying out the problems without a prescription, but I'm gonna give you my policy prescription. So there are certain countries that have had a wonderful time by incentivizing persons with step goals or physical activity goals, and you do these activities, you get some kind of credit. You know what I'm saying? You get something off, like a bill or something that you have to pay. Because the government is saying, by we gonna pay you essentially to stay fit. If you could produce, because right now, your phones and your watches and all that, them type of thing, they have different apps that could show you how active you are physically. So one thing the government could do here, if health is so important, is to extend what it does do with the sugar and actually say, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna incentivize people. If you could show us you are 1 hour a day, every for 20 something days over the month, we are gonna find a way to incentivize you. You know what I'm saying? Like you could get duty free half sneakers or something. There's an angle here. There's ways how we could get people to be more active, but we got to find ways to reward them for being active and simply not asking them because home comfortable and food tastes good.
Overall, these non-communicable disease accounted for 251 deaths in 1992. Fast forward to 2022, it was 368 persons dying from non-communicable diseases, which include, like I said, your cardiovascular diseases, your malignant or cancers, and diabetes, because we just looked at those 3 top, because those are the top causes of death in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis.
One thing I also want to say about the cancer thing, I don't know if anybody has been paying attention, but they recently had processed meats and basically on the top of the list for things that cause cancer. So processed meat, they're talking about bacon, ham, your sliced turkey, all of them kind of things that they got to put the preservatives in. All of those were voted number 1. They're on the same list as cigarette for things that could cause the cancer. So education, because that's another thing. Education is always, education got to be at the heart of any government plan, because how you're going to shift people and get people to be more productive is through education. So that's why I wanted to add that.
When we look at the cause as it relates to the distribution between men and women, we had mainly breast cancers in women and mainly prostate cancers in men. And like I said, there has seemed to have been an explosion in the number of cases compared to 10, 20 years ago. And so we have to start asking, and this does not reflect that healthcare is at its best. And I think I've made that point and it bears repeating. This does not reflect that healthcare is at its best. It seems to suggest that it is worsening if you're going to compare the data. So I want the Premier to recognize in his folly recognize that there is folly in him keep making these statements that the data does not support. It means that you're tone deaf. It means that if you know the data and you're not sharing it, it is a bad situation. And if you don't know the data, you ought to advise, get someone to advise you of what the status is before you speak, because it doesn't reflect well on the organization, because you can't fix something that you don't have any idea exists. And if there's a problem and you keep saying that there isn't a problem, it is not likely that you'll address it in a timely manner. And so we need for him to recognize that healthcare is not at its best, and we need to step up and we need to do better in terms of healthcare delivery and the outcomes for our people. Our people ought not to be in 2026 be traveling overseas for things that they could get done here. It's time for us to, and I keep saying over and over,
in this kind of world, in terms of, I have not heard what Janice went away from now. And I'm not trying to get in Janice's business, but in order for me to determine that is a project is something that Janice supposed to could have get done in the Navy's, we will go come out and hear what was the circumstance. In Romania, if you do 20 squats, you get a free ticket ride on the bus. This is what I'm telling you. There are ways to incentivize people to stay fit, to stay moving. We don't have to continue to I'm just saying we got to stop the thing where we feel like we could shame people into compliance, or we could just tell people that the bad things or something will get them into compliance. And rather than do that, we need to incentivize people and say, if you fit, then this is something that we gonna produce for you, so that you could get a benefit because you're keeping your body fit. It's important.
We need to invest in an epidemiologist. We need to study the data, and we need to be advised by professionals as to what we should best spend our monies. Or right now the resources are limited, and so you must prioritize. And at the end of the day, we should get better outcomes for our people. I made a call and I asked someone in the profession about the status as it relates to an oncologist. That is someone who studies cancers, who treats cancers. That is a doctor that...
No, you have to understand. I don't know off the top of my head what is an epidemiologist. So I had to find out what is an epidemiologist. And it says epidemiologists are public health disease detectives who investigate the causes and patterns and control of diseases and injuries in populations. I would agree with Pat that we need to invest in epidemiology in general. I feel like we need to have a national science institute. And one of the things that should be going on in the institute is the study of the diseases that are impacting the country. So I fully endorse that. I think I can pass it a little bit with some of the things that I would like to see. And if they can be it from a national perspective, I would say Navy should try to go it alone, because ultimately, when Sinkit see the benefit, they will get involved.
Dedicates practice to looking after cancer patients. So if you were to get a diagnosis, God forbid, that you have cancer, then they'll recommend that you get in touch right away with an oncologist who is going to then chart the way forward as to giving you what the options are as it relates to your treatment regime and things like that. So I asked the question about how many oncologists we have on Nevis, and I understand that we don't have any. No, I understand Simkits had 2 oncologists. One was a Cuban, and I don't know if since the latest pressure from the US, the uproar related to us using Cuban expertise, if that one is still with us or, but when I asked the question, I understand we had two innocent kids, one Cuban and one local. Now, if it is that we are treating 94 cases in 2022, and I suspect that it is higher in 2026, it's just a suspicion because the data is not there. Are we suggesting that all 94 plus, or let's say 100, if we're looking at the trajectory and where it's going and the likelihood that the cases are increasing, one doctor should be overseeing the care of 100 plus patients in St. Kitts and Nevis? I don't think that that is a tenable situation to be in. I don't think it is fair to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, not when you're boasting that you have advisors for this and advisors for that. Because the last time I checked, these advisors, particularly at the federal level,
The amount of patients that nurse or doctor see is a KPI. I don't know if she's aware, but that's definitely a KPI.
these advisors were making more money than the doctors. And so we need to make those kind.
When she just said the advisor making more money than the doctors, one of the things that we must do if we are to be serious about combating brain drain, in my estimation, I would like to hear what the people got to say. One of the political promises was to create a research center in Kenya, but as usual, the supporters forgot and don't hold them to their promises. And hear me out there. Remember, I'm saying this is supposed to be a national research institute. This is supposed to be a study diseases. Listen, this is supposed to be a study the trees and be able to mold and get different fruits, get bigger mango, all the anything that is local to St. Christopher and Nevis supposed to be studied at this institute. This institute is supposed to get information on birds and animals and interplay with all these type of things that is not available. One of the reasons why I also feel like this institute would be very vital is this institute could also help us in the education space. We have a number of people who go away for degrees and there is no real way for them to use the degree in St. Kitts and Nevis. They specialize too much in what they do. Whereas if we had one of these type of institutes where people who are academic could go and whether they synthesizing ideas, they testing experiments, we need a place for research and development for the Caribbean. And as I say, it could start off simple and I think would be mimicked in other jurisdictions. What I was saying about in order to combat the brain drain and all these type of things, and in order to draw talent, realistically, the politicians have to get used to the idea that there are gonna be persons in the civil service who are making more money than them. They have to get used to the idea that that won't be a thing. There are doctors who deserve more money than politicians and other civil servants. They're too good at what they do. There is also another solution, but I am barred from saying so. It is a proprietary thing, so I can't say so.
Rational decisions that reflect that we really care about the people who we are serving, the people who elected us to serve their best interests. It is not good enough for us to always be seeing our people on social media with GoFundMe and trying to go overseas, and a lot of time before they even, amass enough, or collect enough monies to pay the airfare and the lodging and all that is related to overseas care, that the most of our people succumb to their.
Another thing that could be said here for healthcare is for some party to figure out, and this is where you're gonna need the help of people in the economic, the real social scientist space. Somebody got to figure out universal healthcare. In order for us to end all of them type of thing there, universal healthcare has to be sorted out. In addition to increasing the competence of the persons who we have on the island in general.
Conditions right here, suffering in the process, and it is heart-wrenching to see that happen. And I think that is something that ought to be addressed, and ought to be addressed speedily. We should not be, pulling teeth to get the best health care that is available for all people. It is basic. It is basic human right. We have a right to these things. If you realize that the more deaths in the Federation related to cancers and they're increasing, that's a no-brainer. Get an oncologist. Nevis needs an oncologist, somebody who could take care of our people at home. And so I'm going to leave it right there. Like I said, I probably would not use the entire 20 minutes on it, but I just thought that I should bring that up again. And
As I was saying last week, this generation gonna have a chance to remake the country. Do you feel like politicians have to be the highest paid officials in the land? If we need people who like oncologists, really exceptional people who could save an actual life, not people who are come up with policy, somebody who could actually save life so that you could live a little bit longer with your loved ones and they don't have to die tragically early in many instances. Could you envision a world where the public servants and them accept a little less money so we could have these type of specialist people? Is this a Nevis? I think it's a Nevis that is worth living in. The question to ask yourself.
because aware of the fact that we should not be settling.
No?
Let's
Like we
take
got
that
a
caller.
caller.
Good evening, caller.
Good evening, Steve, and good evening, Dr. Bartley. This
Good
is
evening.
Hensley Dan.
Good evening.
But by way of information to say that when I left, I was the Minister of Health in Nevis between 2006 and 2013. Two things, Dr. Bartley, done for the rest of the community. When I left, we had an oncologist in Nevis by the name of Dr. Errol Hopdy, and we had an oncology nurse, Mrs. Liebert. She's the wife of, she subsequently passed Pastor Stephen Liebert. Okay, that we did to ensure that we treat people with cancer. The other thing in relation to cancer is that when we left, in Nevis, there were 21 new cases per year. 21 new cases. And for the Federation, the data then showed 87 new cases in St. Kitts and Nevis per year. I don't know what the numbers are at the moment. And as you said, there is always the difficulty in getting the current data. And we had moved at the Ministry of Health in Nevis to establish a cancer registry so that we can in the end, do some tracer studies and so on. And then I had begun some discussions with the NIH, the National Institute of Health, in the United States with a view toward working through the University of the West Indies to conduct some research on cancer in Nevis, because in a population of 13,000 and you have 21 new cases per year, that must be some form of a crisis in such a small population. So we began the discussion. I remember meeting with Dr. John Ruffin, who was in charge of health disparities unit at the NIH, to put us as name us as one of the countries with health disparities. And so the discussion began as to how we could lay out the program. But of course, since we left government, that process was not continued, has not continued. And then in relation to the non-communicable diseases, I was at the CARICOM Health Summit with the CARICOM leaders.
It is important to learn from the aspect there. Just because things were discontinued by the concerned citizen movement does not mean that NRP needs to discontinue everything. Anybody else? You don't need to discontinue everything that a past government is doing. You need to assess for yourself and determine whether or not it is the right path. The agent said the politicians need to be paid well. So when someone comes with a pride, they could say no. I understand that that is the AG position, eh? But what I'm saying is up to us if we disagree with the AG position to determine whether or not that is valid. Maybe we could argue that we could also argue that the AG, as I said, is a public servant. We are not forcing any of these people to be in the positions that they are, you know. They get not just what they get is not just a tremendous amount of money, you know, but they also get a tremendous amount of power and influence as a result of the jobs that they are put in. And so even though sometimes they're not getting the money, the power is still there. Hold on a second. And politicians should not be getting full pensions after 2 terms, when the regular man has to work way longer for a tiny pension. That's what I'm saying. Going forward, we're gonna have the ability to shape how this thing gonna look. And all of these things for me are valid considerations. Are valid considerations into what we're looking at. Yeah, man, they get all types of allowances to travel. So it's not just the money. Really and truly, another thing that I would like to say to counteract the AG, if he gonna say that in order to maintain your integrity, basically, you got to be well paid. I would say maybe we need to cap how long you could be in there, and maybe you need to be shorter. So since you want it to be, since you want to be able to make more money, work for the public service for X amount of time, and then leave in the private service and make your money. The other alternative, because there is a way for me in my mind to see civil servants, at least I'm talking about the politicians themselves, to get more money, and that's to be more productive. If you're more productive, nobody gonna argue with you getting more money, because everybody gonna be getting more money. So if you ultimately create a situation that is more productive for everybody, then help yourself.
That in 2007. And, we had spent a lot of money on contagious diseases like AIDS and so on. And then when it was recognized that each Caribbean country was spending something between 2 and 3% of its GDP on non-communicable disease. So we had to reverse. That is why you had the developed programs with, I think, CARICOM Health Day, September 30, with a view towards promoting more healthy living and with a view towards developing prevention measures and so on. Again, I don't know the extent to which those efforts have continued, but I just like to let the people know that that is what we had done while in the government. So these things were not, we had put those things in place because we were attempting to deal with the crisis at hand. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that intervention. And that is the thing, Steve, some people don't understand that government is continuous. Mm-hmm. And you just can't discard a program just because NRP started it. You must look at what it brought to the community. You must look for the value in it. And that is one of the saddest things that I've seen as it relates to the expressions of governance of this particular government that is in place, or this administration that is in place in Nevis. I mean, the health of the people seem not to be sometimes a priority. And it's always about political brinksmanship, because I think similar situation would have played out as it related to the efforts that were made for NRP to bring dialysis for the relief of the kidney or the renal, patients at the time when they were there, and it was something that was not continued, and we've seen our people suffer because of that. We have seen within recent times that some of people have succumbed to the end-stage renal situation that they were in, and so these are things that points to regression, not to progression. And so it means that we are going backwards, Mr. Premier, we're not going forward. And so that is regrettable, and it is reversible, It is reversible, because the policies really that the NIA adopt, those are the policies that ultimately going to decide the quality of life of the people of Nevis. If we have a government that cares nothing about the quality of life of the people of Nevis, that is what is going to be reflected just where we are today, in that we have a regression. The things that were there that we should have built on, those things were just, the building blocks were taken down, and today you have nothing really to give us any measure of relief as it relates to our healthcare system, and it is worsening, and it's about time people understood that going next election, let us not be fooled with foolishness, and let us not get consumed with foolish rhetoric, because the last election, I'm like, how could these people win an election or even come close with the nonsense that they had on their platform? I can't tell you one issue that they brought to the people that would have said or swayed anybody.
I just feel like these people, and when I say these people, let me let you understand. In general, this is our way. You would hear the CCM say, NRP ain't had no issues. You would hear NRP say CCM ain't got no issues. And what I'm trying to tell you people is that there's an echo chamber. And this is where you have a responsibility as the people. Since they don't listen to each other, we as the people got to come up with the issues that important to us. And you hit them over their head, no care who you be them be. Come go talk to you. You talk to them about the issues that are important to you. And you find out what their plans be, what their vision is. And after you're done with the what, God, you better believe the what don't sound nice, Ask them, well, how you gonna get it do? Don't even ask them why. Because the why is always bar. But just ask them, well, how you gonna get it do? You understand? When is a good thing to ask them do? When you gonna finish? When you're gonna done? When you're gonna start? Then things are good. But the what will be good. But ask them the rest.
Anything persuasive, any kind of persuasive argument as it related to any of the issues that we were facing. Not on the economy, they didn't make a case on the economy. All they said, at least as it related to the federal government was, oh, send us to Bastille. Just send us to Bastille, we'll bring you for your share. No plan, no, and those kind of things. And then for the local elections, it was another set of nonsense about who gonna vote for them and who's mascara and all foolishness that when they take a mic and jumping into hell and all kind of foolishness that had no relevance whatsoever to improving the life of or the livelihood of the people of Nevis. And so now we are suffering the consequences of that, as people normally would say. And it is true, it is being borne out right here that elections have consequences. So I bring to us the facts so that when we think about these things and we reflect, it's like, which government you really think would have your best interests at heart? An RP who saw that there was an increase, a crisis, because the ex-minister is now, the former minister is now saying that they recognize that as a crisis. And he was only talking about the number of people who are being added to the list every year. So if you have an increase of 21 cases, but
my thing is, I'm not against the personal things that people want done. I actually feel like the personal things that people want done is a way to get us ultimately to the goal what we want to reach. I just feel like these personal things need to be connected to other people personal things. We need to discuss and talk and say, you want your road paved? But me want me road paved too. You want to walk? When me want to walk too. They don't need to be anything nefarious or anything bad in people wanting upliftment or stability for the government to create opportunities in any of these particular fields. Where it is the responsibility is for us to come together and to determine um, which government, which individuals would be best placed to carry out our vision. And if they are deviating from our vision, then we're going to take them out and we're going with somebody else. And at any point in time, when they are not able to execute or they have no vision, then at that moment in time, then maybe there needs to be a totally new circumstance.
now we're doing with the actual deaths, the information I provided. So we're talking about the final outcomes, because those persons, once they got the intervention, the medical interventions that were appropriate at that time, and maybe they would have lived much longer, and maybe that's why we had such smaller numbers of deaths. Because in 2012, which is would have been during the period of time that the former minister made reference to, the cases were just in the 60s, were just 62, and now, 10 years after that, in 2022 is up to 94, and those we're talking about actual deaths mean that the outcomes have not been good. So if it is that you're adding 21 new cases every year, but you're going to have 94 people dying, you see where we're going. And then you hear that Dr. Drew is going to now start to propose an initiative to increase the birth rate. But then again, you have to study the data. What is the data saying, and that is, I want to just jump over to that, if we could segue into that right away, in that Dr. Drew was proposing, and I don't know, I have not seen the elements of the proposal. We don't know yet exactly what he's about to propose to his cabinet, let alone to bring it to the national level in Parliament. But he recognizes that we have a problem with population dynamics. All of our people are getting older. Our population is getting older, and we don't have what people generally talk about, the replacement rate, meaning for every person that goes out, you need to have X amount of persons to replace them. And so I looked at what is going on, or what has been going on from 2017.
This can be against what part argument, but one of the reasons why the population is getting older also And this is to counteract what she's saying about the state of healthcare. I think the average age life expectancy in St. Kitts and Nevis right now is 77 years old, and that has been going up. That is an indication that healthcare overall is actually health is improving. I think the average age for a woman right now is 80 something, and for a man is 74, something like that. So, and in the middle is where the average lies. But that's the state of things for the moment, at least there.
though, because I kind of like to cover the period of time that this current NIA has been seated, because I don't want to give them the blame for what would have preceded them, but in their current circumstances, they ought to be responsible for their term of service. And so I kind of most of the times pivot to including or starting my data analysis in 2017, unless otherwise indicated. So in Nevis, we seem to have had a steady birth rate in that we've been seeing from 2017, 98 new births. And up to 2023, we were having 98. During that period between there, we had some slight increases. So there would have been some fluctuations in that 108 in 2018, then it dropped down to 89. And so it has fluctuated, but it has kept quite steadily close to the 98, births. And on average, it would be just panning out to be about 100 births during that period of time between 2017 up to 2023. Now in St. Kitts, they're more, well, it's a bigger population, of course, and maybe a little more prolific than us. So they've had numbers like 554 births in 1 year. Yes, in 2017 they had 554 births. However, by 2023, births had fallen off considerably down to 388. So you compare in 2017, 500 plus, and now in 2023, just 300 plus. It means that there's cause for concern. And so I join Dr. Ju in that there is need for some kind of intervention. All right? There's need for
Listen, I'm gonna pause this here, and I'm gonna give y'all my perspective on this birth rate thing. Maybe we shall pick up with Pat next week. I gotta listen to some of me go before I go. So, with regards to this birth rate circumstance, everybody who I hear speak about the birth rate is speaking about it from the back end and not from the front end, as far as I could hear. The issue is not that there are less children being born than the politicians would like. The issue is, why is this the case? And just like in the case of, if you want to incentivize people to be healthy, if you would like people to have more children, you have to study the conditions in which people get more children. And one of those conditions is that people don't feel like they got a lot of money. People got to feel like they have a lot of opportunity. So that even if in either scenario, if they get fired from their job, they could get another job and then feed, and even in the interim they don't have money. People want to feel stability. People want to feel like there's opportunity there. And outside of that, you're not gonna have people, in my estimation, jumping to go get a bunch of children. So in my perspective, even if she wanna say, well, yeah, she just read off a pile of numbers and tell her she agree with Dr. Joe. Even if you agree with Dr. Joe, how these people are going about it is in the totally wrong one. This thing need to be approached from the perspective of what are the conditions that are gonna allow us to get this thing done. And nobody is speaking about what needs to happen to encourage people. Nobody is trying to understand why people are having less children. Nobody is speaking about how in the old days marriage and family was looked at differently, and nobody is looking at the social circumstances and how they have evolved, and talking about any of how this is impacting and the situation. Anyway, it's time for my goat. We're gonna listen in about 15 minutes of the goat. I see the goat come up.
To explore his journey, motivations, and vision for the island.
Pause. No, boys. No, okay, good. I got you know.
Of Nevis, the future that is. Thank you so much for taking the time out to join me, Mark.
Sure, and thank you for having me.
Before I start, I must be remiss if I didn't mention Victor Lewis is a good colleague of mine.
Oh, fantastic. Victor's a great guy.
He wanted me to make a point.
Yes,
of,
absolutely. Please give him my regard.
Yeah, British Dependency, the group.
Yes, absolutely. From Angola.
All right.
Yeah, man.
All right. Again, thanks for joining me. Can you take us back to your early years growing up? What brought you to politics on Nevis?
Oh, my early years, it's a bit of a journey now. But I was born in Hanley's Road, as you know, as a rural community here.
Just like how me fast forward, but cross the greetings and all them kind of thing. They don't bother believe me when I hear about all of Mark Journey and all them things. If you don't know about Mark Journey and all them story there, then you're going to go listen to somebody else thing. And I hear for the journey. I hear for the destination today.
Joined Simeon Daniels, or you guys at some point had a joint venture.
Right.
Daniel Brenton Associates.
Right. Very young. So we had a personal relationship. And I think in many ways he has mentored me and assisted me in a serious way. So really the issue for me of politics came much later, because I came back home in 1996. I worked as a lawyer, and frankly, I didn't enter politics until 2006. So there was some period of time that I worked, and until I eventually decided that I would try my hand in politics. And by that time, I think Dr. Daniel was a very strong supporter. In fact, I say all the time that he is the only person I know in politics who has a recorded endorsement from a national hero is me, because he was able to do that. But I think at the time he was definitely no longer with the party that he founded.
I know he was a staunch secessionist. I remember that.
He was. He had his ideas in relation to that and how that ought to go. But I think that, the political fortunes ebb and flow.
I would like to debate somebody from NRP about the secession thing. I feel like secession, destroy NRP, kind of way.
I think ideas that were at one point, I believe, had some currency, they fade over time, they then re-emerge. So really at this juncture, I'm not sure that there's a sentiment on the ground in that direction. But the beauty about it is that under our Constitution, the right exists. And so it's for people to determine when they want to exercise that right.
Okay. And then you succeeded Vance Hamry as the leader of the CCM party. That was pretty big shoes to fill. Vance represented Nevis as a cricketer and also as a leader.
Boy, listen, we ain't here for the Mark Brownlee story. I'm sorry. If you would like to hear the Mark Brownlee story, by the way, you can log on and you can watch the full interview. That's not what we're here for.
Positive or otherwise.
In terms of positive lessons, I think what Vance brought was a sense of calm to situation. I think as we passed on.
You're now getting that calm.
Yeah, I never had it, but I'm certainly trying. Every country in the world is trying to get better healthcare. In the great United States, where you live,
Currently is my guest.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
the
All
leader
right.
of Nevis,
See, it
pretty
seems like we
distinguished from
finally
our
reach
country.
into our
Most
question.
distinguished to have the honor of sitting with you. We've done a phone at some point.
yes,
in the
before,
future,
absolutely,
so
absolutely.
it's a pleasure to sit with you.
Right.
Can we pivot towards healthcare in Nevis?
Sure.
What upgrades have been made in recent years, and what would you say remains urgent?
Healthcare is an ongoing process. Every country in the world is trying to get better healthcare. In the great United States, where you live with all the money in the world, the most powerful nation in the world, they still can't get it right. That is the reality. Healthcare is very.
Um, the premier is now on to make comparisons between Nevis and other jurisdictions. I would like to say that you do not find anywhere in the world anybody who looks at the American healthcare system and say, I would like some of that. Okay. I am not disparaging the quality of medical care in America. Outstanding quality, amongst the best. But as far as if you're speaking about from a pricing standpoint, oh no, you don't want to do it. You can't speak to any European about adapting this healthcare. Let me see what I do.
Expensive. And so, if you could imagine in the United States they're struggling, you could clearly imagine what it means for small island states like ours with very limited resources, very limited financial resources, and very limited human resources. So, you find we struggle even with attracting nurses, for example, attracting doctors, attracting qualified doctors. I give you an example. One of my very good friends, incredibly brilliant neurosurgeon, is from Handlers Road, a chap called Dr.
Hold on, because people me stick up in other kind of thing. Okay. I'm free for a moment.